Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. My name is John Pollock, and we have Robin Black coming by to chat about today's news, which includes surgery coming up for a top lightweight. The rematch between Jon Jones and Alexander Gustafsson officially has a home, and a big featherweight bout has been announced. Ariel Helwani broke the news that featherweights Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor is signed and will take place Saturday, September the 27th in Las Vegas on what has grown into a loaded pay-per-view card. Poirier last fought in April with a win over Akira Corassani and has been victorious in his last three. McGregor returned to the octagon this past Saturday after 11 months on the sidelines and finished Diego Brandao in the opening round. After switching locations from Toronto to Las Vegas, the UFC 178 pay-per-view, headlined by Jon Jones and Alexander Gustafsson, will officially be taking place at the MGM Grand Garden Arena after it was left up in the air for a number of weeks as to which Vegas venue would house the rematch. UFC President Dana White had stated that Vegas wanted the fight more than Toronto, which likely indicates a significant site fee from the arena to get the card, which for big fights can be in the $1 million range. And undefeated lightweight Khabib Nurmagomedov will be gone for the rest of the year after tearing his meniscus immediately after he signed on to fight Donald Cerrone at UFC 178. Manager Mike Constantino informed MMAfighting.com of the injury and that Nurmagomedov will be unable to train until January while the knee is healing. The Dagestani fighter is 6-0 in the UFC and last defeated Rafael dos Anjos back in April in Orlando, Florida. And here he is returning to the desk off a nice vacation in Los Angeles. Robin Black. Robin, welcome back.
Thanks, man. It is good to be home. You know, I had a great time in LA. Got to go to my wife's opening for her musical. Hung out with Eddie Bravo and went and trained with him. And that guy smokes Ramdeen levels of marijuana.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but actually, and he's a genius. Just had a really good time. Really did.
Well, Ramdeen is still down somewhere in California as we speak. But let's chat about a big fight that has been announced. This was the fight that everyone seemed to be targeting for Conor McGregor, coming off the win over Diego Brandao. Dustin Poirier, it is now signed and sealed for September the 27th, UFC 178, which you and I were just looking at this card, and it's like, yeah. You know, you hear all these fights being thrown and all these dates, and then when you kind of see the card shaping up, this is what a pay-per-view card should be, where it's not just one or two fights, it's a very deep main card, and you want to pay to see it.
Yeah, and people will pay to see this one from the top on down. This fight is fascinating to me. I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about Conor McGregor's performance. It was outstanding, but mainly for my money, it was how mentally, you know, solid he was, how relaxed he was, how confident he was. That's all real, but how's that going to work against Poirier? This isn't one step up. This isn't two steps up. This is a few steps up. And Poirier is super aggressive. I think Poirier has a lot of ways to win this fight if he plays it smart, but he never plays it smart. This is a really exciting fight, and there's a lot of questions that will not be answered until one of those guys wins and one of them loses.
And this is what I really like for this pay-per-view, is that you have the big rematch with Jon Jones and Gustafsson, and then the card is filled in with all these interesting stories. Conor McGregor is great to have in that third fight on a pay-per-view. It's a big, big fight, but it's not the headliner. You have Dominic Cruz coming back, Kat Zingano coming back. I mean, this is a card that, man, they were talking about Cerrone Nurmagomedov for this card before Nurmagomedov got hurt. Like, this to me is, I think they really reacted in a positive way to UFC 174, was that, listen, Demetrius Johnson, Ali Bogatinov, great fight. Yep. We know our pay-per-views need to be special, and we are not going to be doing numbers like that. Pay-per-views will be different from all our other cards, and that's a positive if that's what they took from a terrible number.
For sure, and you know what's interesting, too, is how these things kind of ebb and flow, because this week, man, coming off Cerrone versus Miller, and then the awesome time in Dublin, and then seeing that card coming up, we're on an upswing. If this is your game, if this is your sport, if this is your entertainment passion, things are looking really good.
I know, and we really kind of, you know, we belabor the point about all of these cards. It's a lot to take in, but man, you watched those two cards last week, and they, to me, flew by, and they were two great cards that I thoroughly enjoyed, and having two cards in 4 days was not really a problem because you got a lot of quality in those two events.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, Cerrone Miller was just fantastic, and Ireland, man, like to be able to not only see a card like that, but see a territory like that start to work, you know? Man, like to see a crowd come alive like that, that's something that happened when George fought in Montreal. That's something that happens when an entire culture gets behind a fight guy, gets behind a fighter, a fight figure, a celebrity, and that's what happened. And it was really exciting to see.
We mentioned about Khabib Nurmagomedov. He is now out with a torn meniscus and is really going to, kind of prohibit his growth within the lightweight division. Everyone was really looking forward to that Donald Cerrone fight. Won't be able to train until January at this point, and maybe in a weird way, it's a bit of a benefit for him in the fact that Gilbert Melendez and Anthony Pettis won't be fighting until December the 6th. Nurmagomedov comes back. I mean, he could find himself in a more advantageous spot where a lot of the lightweights right now, they're fighting to keep busy while the title is iced until the end of Ultimate Fighter.
If you're ever going to get hurt, I mean, there's never a great time. But when you're at the top, at least, you're going to stay there. Everybody's, very concerned with who's going to fight him. Everyone's concerned if they're the guys that are fighting him. Donald wants to fight him, but Donald wants to fight anybody, which is why we love him. But he's not going anywhere. So if he gets hurt now, if he was the next guy in line, we know that that's never really the next guy. He might tumble out. But he's kind of that stop on the way up. So he's going to stay there. But, it's a good thing right now when suddenly we're talking about the Gunnar Nelsons, we're talking about a lot of new guys, a lot of new blood, a lot of new exciting stuff. When it's something like that, when we're in a stage like that, you can afford to have a guy go down hurt. There'll just be room for him when he comes back.
Now, you're a person that you have the pulse of the people out there, especially here in our neck of the woods in Toronto. And there seems to be a lot of ill will right now. The fact that the UFC 178, everyone assumed it was coming to Toronto. It's the annual September show. And I think Dana White used a poor choice of words when he stated, Vegas wanted it more. I think it comes down to a business decision that the MGM Grand was going to pony up a significant site fee. But to say it like that, it's almost like a you to the fans in Toronto, essentially. Do you think that is going to carry over? Have you heard personally from people in the city that, everyone expected this, the rematch, and it's going to Vegas?
Yeah, I think it may sound like you to Toronto, but I don't think it is. I think even if it is, it's a smaller cost, it's a smaller insult than go and take that arena and have it 65% full. And I think that was their concern. In Quebec City does 4,000 or 5,000. You gotta cancel Montreal because the hype isn't there. This is a shrinking period in Canadian MMA.
Even with that rematch,
though. I think so. I think our consumption is down. Brazil's up. Ireland's going up. It's up and down throughout. Canada is not the hotbed right now.
He is Robin Black. I am John Pollock, and we have lots more coming your way on Fight News Now Extra. Stay tuned.